names that have been out there in the rumor mill from the Sabres aspect. We know Vancouver and New York Rangers have been teams that people have tried to link the Sabres to and possible mock trades or things like that. But seems like the big three right now, there's a lot of smoke around right now, are Dylan Cozens, Bowen Byram, and Jack Quinn.
Yeah, and I mean, the Byram one, I understand. That's clearly not because of performance, right? He's been playing well with Rasmus Dahlin this year. That is simply because, from what I've seen, he's a guy who wants to have a larger role. And obviously, when you come to a team with, that's one, not playing well. But when you come to a team with a guy like Rasmus Dahlin and Owen Power, it is very hard to get power play time, which we've seen. He's getting top pair ice time, which is good, but I get it. If I'm Adams, he's got RFA control. I'm a little bit hesitant to move that unless it's for a significant piece. Jack Quinn, just not playing well. Straight up looks, again, at times as unplayable. You've still seen the flashes here and there. I get excited every once in a while he'll have a good game. So I don't know what this is. Is this the new coach just not fitting him well? Because unlike Cozens, where the decline has happened a little bit year over year, this Quinn decline kind of just feels not out of nowhere, because he wasn't the highest pace he's had is a 40-point pace, but Jack Quinn was consistent when he was healthy. Now he's just not consistent at all, and he's way more bad than he is good. Dylan Cozens is an interesting one because he's got term. He is a potential second line center, depending on what people think of him. I don't necessarily think he's that anymore. He could prove everyone wrong again, but he's the interesting one. He is the one with term, the one Buffalo has committed to. So to me, that is interesting. I don't know what his value is, but if there are enough teams interested in him, there has to be some decent trade packages out there. And if he goes on to win a Stanley Cup, I honestly am at the point, and Sabres fans hopefully feel this way too, who cares? Because we've seen this core for multiple years not get it done. If they can't get it done this year, someone's got to go.
And I just look at that, and it's just disappointing. Cozens, top 10 pick. Byram was a 4th overall pick, traded to Buffalo for Casey Middlestat, who was also a top 10 pick. Jack Quinn, a top 15 pick as well. So it's just disappointing that those three players that could have been great core pieces for the turnaround of the team that you expect from guys that are selected in the first round and in the upper echelon of the first round, that they were able to get that second contract. But in Buffalo's case, 14 straight years, unfortunately those guys' potential and talent coming out of junior hockey just has not been there. We saw Jack Quinn score 50 goals as an Ottawa 67, and he hasn't looked like that Jack Quinn yet. We saw Dylan Cozens in the WHL put up some massive numbers, just isn't there. Had that one good year 2 years ago, but every Sabres player did that year, so that was a little bit inflated. So when you look at those three guys there, it's just disappointing from the development and the NHL draft portion of it when you go back and look at how excited we were when these guys were picked.
Yeah, and Quinn is it depends on how you look at it, right? Jack Quinn is on his entry-level deal, so does he maybe have more value than people think because he's cheaper? I don't know. Does Cozens have less value because he has term? I don't know. I mean, usually young centers with term are pretty good. And like you said, I know 2 years ago was a bit of an outlier. It's showing that maybe Cozens is never going to be a 30-goal scorer again. But $7-point-something million for a guy for 6 more years who has 25 goal potential, could be a second-line center. I got to think there's somebody out there who's willing to pay up for him. And I know everyone's whole thing is, well, he's playing bad, Buffalo's bad, no one's offering him anything good. Well, that's the GM's job to make sure he gets offered something good. I'm not sitting out here saying, hey, send Dylan Cozens away for a prospect and a pick. No, absolutely not. If no one is offering you something good, don't take it. But if there are enough teams interested in these guys, something's got to be, of substance has to be offered. And we are far past the point where Adams has patience and time to sit on his hands, at least in our eyes. Obviously, clearly in his eyes, he feels a different type of way. But the craziest thing is we're talking about this, and like I just said earlier, there's a chance where come next month they're still somehow only 3 points out of a playoff spot because that's how bad the East is. I don't think this team is going to claw their way back into that, but I do think the rest of the league just is not that good to where the Sabres will never fully fall out of it. So it is going to be very interesting, but I do think this team is in need of a core shakeup. And I will say this, Alex Tuch seems to be like the crown acquisition for Kevin Adams. He's 2 years away from unrestricted free agency. I don't care how much the dude loves Buffalo. If things keep going like this, do you think Alex Tuch is staying here? Not a chance in hell. So if he's a guy you want to keep around, Adams, you better figure this out fast, because why would he stay here unless you show him that you could be a serious organization?
Well, they got a new Jumbotron. They got a new roof. They made improvements in the arena. They could bring the goat head back, so maybe that is supposed to keep Alex Tuch and his fandom nostalgia around. But joking aside, just quickly back to the Dylan Cozens thing, and I don't mean to rib on him, but after he had that 30-goal season that we talked about, he was somebody that was being discussed on national television on the big, NHL shows about a possible candidate for Team Canada at the Olympics. Like he was on a trajectory that was almost putting him in elite status, at least in general OHL or general NHL circles, that this is a guy that could possibly be worthy of playing on Team Canada. And obviously Tage Thompson's not making the U.S. team, which again I think is ridiculous, but that's almost like a deterrent on the Sabres for what they have or haven't done. So you look at those guys and not being able to get those sort of opportunities because of the team just not being up to snuff and everybody around the league looking at Buffalo in a negative manner, which reflects on those players that could be, good players, but because they're currently in Buffalo, they aren't looked at in the same light.
Yeah, with Cozens, I mean, we're talking about a guy who in his second full NHL season, I know his rookie year was like the weird year, but in 2021-22, he had 38 points in 79 games. Goes to Team Canada at the World Championships, puts up 13 points in 10 games.
Yep.
We're talking about a guy who then had his career year. Then the next year, again, only 47 points, but also goes to Team Canada again, scores 9 goals at the World Championships before this upcoming season. It's there. I don't know what's going wrong here. And when you get to a point where it's just not being fixed, you have to look to move on. I know he's here for a while, obviously. So like I said, keep him until a good package comes. But like at some point that becomes a valuable trade chip you have to be dangling out there. You committed to this core, and like I said, Adams, I gave him his flowers for committing to a core and saying, you know what, I'm going down with this core. This core is going down faster than we expected it to. So at some point, the flowers that you got for finding a core and committing to it is a good thing. Going down with the shit might cost you your front office career, because the core you've committed to, aside from Tage and Dahlin, I don't count like Tuck as a core he committed to because he already had a contract there. So like what we're talking, Tage, Dahlin, Power, Cozens, and Samuelsson are the 5 big long-term extensions he's given out. Samuelsson can't stay healthy and looks abysmal. Power is struggling, which he's in, a young defenseman, they tend to struggle, but he's kind of gone backwards in a lot of areas that he's usually pretty good at. He started off the year really well offensively. The offense is kind of dissipated. The defense is struggling. He's been playing with Yoki Haru, who's abysmal. Samuelsson, who sucks. He's had his best games and minutes with Connor Clifton, but the coach doesn't seem to want to put those guys together, so they can't find him a steady partner. Tage is good, Dahlin is good, and Cozens just is like 3 out of the 5 big extensions you signed are starting to age poorly really fast. I have hope for Power because whether people hate him or not, he's 6 foot, whatever. He's not going to be a grinder. He's not going to be physical. He is a puck-moving offensive defenseman who happens to be big. So please stop asking him to be gritty. Yes, you could ask him to tie up his man in front of the net, which he definitely needs to work on his defensive game. But he's a young defenseman, so throw him away. He's a guy that I still think should, be on this team. And unless the Canucks say Owen Power for Elias Pettersson, straight up, let's do a hockey trade, you at least consider that. But Owen Power should be here. So when 2 of your core are solid, 1 is questionable right now with Owen Power, and then Samuelsson and Cozens just look bad, you're at less than 50% of your long-term extensions working out. That's not good. That's not a recipe for success. And that's where Adams finds himself. So now it's time to prove you were able to commit to the core. Now show the fan base you can finagle your way and change a core, because that is the next step for this team. It's been the next step for this team for a while, and he's yet to do it. But maybe we're talking 2 months from now how he's made a significant trade, because like I said, he's not going anywhere in season, and I still am not convinced he's going anywhere in the offseason.